Alrighty, greetings there, all of my Chun-Li enthusiasts. Welcome back to another Sage's Dojo session. Today we're going to go ahead and get some training in. We're returning back to our Master Series here. And what we're going to be discussing in this particular video is, I know in the last session, we spoke about movement. That was the last one, where we were able to speak about, something as simple and as basic as just using movement in order to help create space or to close space, and more importantly, just making sure that you can maintain control of the character while you are using them, right? Last thing that you want to do is get clipped by a low forward, by a crouching medium kick when you could have sworn that you were blocking low, right? And then you end up losing the game because of it, right? So, but to go ahead and segue from that, the next step we want to go ahead and take in regards to the Master Series is we're going to take a look into controlling and maintaining space. Right. This is building upon the whole movement thing. Movement is very important, as we already know, but also being able to control your space is as well, right? So a lot of these are going to go in, a lot of these ideas are going to go into building blocks into what neutral is, one step at a time. Of course, like I said, we're not going to go into things like footsies or anything like that. That won't be required for a while. However, the neutral, understanding many facets of the neutral game is also very important, right? So, um, in the last video, of course, like I said, we mentioned using movement. All of these things can play into your neutral game as well. So, for those that are curious, what exactly is the neutral game? I did explain it in one of the previous Chun-Li videos, but the neutral game is, think of a neutron in the nucleus of an atom. It's not a proton or an electron. It's not positive and it's not negative. It's neutral. Nobody has an advantage here, right? Relatively speaking, right? Um, so Ryu or Chun Li, they don't. Neither of them have an advantage here. This is a neutral state. This is also a neutral state. Technically speaking, this is also a neutral state. Nobody has the advantage. But usually when we think of neutral, we're thinking of this, right? Because depending on who encroaches on whose space, that neutral charge begins to go positive or negative very quickly, depending on what character it is, right? If you're fighting a character like JP or something like that, as you encroach on his space, that's getting closer to being negative for him, right? And if Ken or Kimberly or Cammy are doing that to literally anybody else in the cast, it's starting to look pretty bad for them, even if no buttons are being pressed, right? So the charge starts to change depending on where you space yourself at. But for the most part, this is still neutral, right? Nobody has an advantage yet. But usually when we're talking about neutral, we're talking about this gulf of space right here in between the two characters on the screen. And as I mentioned before, when it comes to spacing, that is an important part of the neutral game, right? Because obviously people are going to want to push buttons and do things, and things are going to be more or less effective depending on the spacing and if it is properly handled. For example, obviously, if you are this far away, Ryu cannot threaten us with anything but his fireball game, which is going to be his regular fireball and his Daijin charge fireball, right? So that's pretty much going to be it. He can't. I mean, he can throw out a Tatsu, but that's a very risky one. So I'm not. We're not going to assume that he can threaten you with this. But technically speaking, yes, he can use Tatsumaki to get over there, right? But yeah, that's pretty much it. Now, on Chun Li's side of the spectrum, Chun Li can't threaten Ryu with anything. The only thing she can threaten him with is an EX fireball. That's pretty much it. Nothing else is going to reach him from that point, right? So at this spacing, this is for Chun-Li specifically, this is a little bit too far back. Now, other characters are happy with this type of situation. Guile likes this. JP definitely likes this. Dawson, as long as his limbs can actually reach you, if his limbs cannot reach you, it's not really the best situation to be in. And the reason for that is because fireballs. All right, Ryu, we're gonna get you to do a little something for us here. Um, so I need you to repeat that for me. Let's go ahead and set that up in the training room here. Okay. Let's re-report it. There we go. All right, he's gonna keep doing that. So the reason why this is a situation in which, okay, so we have Ryu set here to throw fireballs, right? So in older Street Fighter games, that would be fine and dandy, like Street Fighter 4, for example, because you would take chip damage for blocking. Now, obviously, it would take a while, but if the opponent continued to keep blocking that all day long, they would eventually die. So they're going to have to find a way to get through the fireballs, usually through jumping or something like that, right? But in this game, the only thing that's really, unless you just get hit, the only thing is you're going to get hit is your drive gauge, which can lead to you losing because obviously, you know, drive impact and when you're getting burnt out, but you can just parry. Parry exists. See my meter? It's full. It counts meter to do the parry, but if you parry them, I'm not losing anything. So eventually I can do this, right? So the reason why I mentioned like Dawson, for example, it depends on if his limbs can reach you is because, as you can see, fireballs by themselves are going to do very little in this game. So they're more of a tool to help you control space and try to gain a positive charge in the nucleus of the atom, right? You're trying to become a proton. So that's kind of what these fireballs allow you to do. So Ryu, his fireballs are only going to do so much, right? Now, technically speaking, he could change the pace of the fireballs, doing stuff like this. Probably get a chip here and there out, right? But it's only going to do so much. So I don't want to get too off track with it. But certain characters want to be within a specific range so that they can actually threaten you with most of their toolkits. Dawson wants you to be right around here because he can trap you with fireballs and teleport to you and hit you with his elastic Mr. Fantastic limbs, right? Ryu can throw fireballs. He can technically threaten you, quote unquote, with fireballs from this range, but we're a master rank. Unless we're just completely tilted and have no patience at the moment, they're not going to do too much with just the fireballs. So Ryu actually will want us to be somewhere within this range of him. If they're a little bit more of a turtle, then they're going to want to be a little bit further back, right? So Chun-Li, kind of the same thing. If you're more of a turtle like me, you probably want to Chun-Li's range wants to be like somewhere right in here. Now she can kind of maneuver to and fro because of her movement speed, but she wants to be somewhere in this range so that she can catch your limbs with her pokes and stuff like that, right? So, but if you're more of a turtle, you could kind of get away with being at this range because the Kukulkan can still threaten them, right? And the reason why we want to, if you're a turtle Chun-Li, the reason why you want to be this far back is because, obviously, if you're just throwing, let's go ahead and get Ryu to start throwing this stuff again. So actually, I'm going to go ahead and set a Chun-Li dummy here, so that way we can really see what's going on, right? So I'm going to get Chun-Li here to charge a Kukulkan, right? So obviously, this can happen, right? And now you're in a corner and you have to do a bullcrap, right? So that's part of the reason why you want to be cognitive of your spacing. sometimes you might see opponents walking towards you and stuff like that, and then when you throw a fireball, you just see this happen to you, like this, right? I'm sure you probably experienced that. That's because they're in range. They're waiting for you to do it so that they can hit you with drive impact. It's the same thing with jumping. These players they're focusing their mental stack on you throwing a fireball. The moment they see you do anything, they're just going to go like this, right? Or drive impact. So if you keep a bit of a wider berth here, see, Chun-Li cannot threaten us with a jump in or with a drive impact from this range. Well, she can jump, but that's a little bit hard, right? Like if you throw a Kokoken from this far, you're going to recover before she gets to hit you, right? Let's test it out. Alright, Chun, we're going to need you to throw another Kokoken. Alright. Yeah, it's going on ready and us, so okay. Apologies. That should do it. See? Technically, you can still hit her, but it's a lot harder, right? So, around this range is pretty optimal. Most people aren't going to jump from this far back because if you move even slightly, they're going to whiff and get punished for it. So, this is usually the range where they're going to jump at. So, if you're trying to turtle, you want to keep a little bit of a wider berth from your opponent so that way they can't just jump and they can't hit you with this either. So, now, that's how you can space if you want to be a turtle. The reason why I'm mentioning these specific things is because I can sit here and tell you all day about the mathematics and the big brain A plus B equals C squared of spacing. But the key thing is to understand why you are spacing. The reason why you are spacing is so that you can increase your options and decrease your opponent's options. That is like the most blatant and probably effective and simple way that it can be played. It's stated, right? So when you keep that logic in mind, it should help you to determine where to space against certain characters instead of somebody having to tell you, right? The main key thing is you want to increase your options and decrease your opponent's options. Now, it can be a little difficult with that dynamic because things change depending on what character it is, as well as combining with your character spacing. So it's going to be sometimes you might have to ebb in and out of a specific range, but every character pretty much has a sweet spot that they want to be. Like we established, Chun-Li wants to be within this range. Chun-Li has more options. Like around this range, she can hit you with some stuff, right? She can also move in and out to punish whiffs, right? Like this. So she wants, optimally speaking, as higher level players would say, you want to be like right around this range. If you want to try to turtle, you want to be like more in this range. Your Kokoken can still threaten them. You get enough time to walk towards them or walk back, blah, 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 right? So, now, what about somebody like JP? Well, JP is easy. The further you are, the better. He can threaten you from almost any point. Now, obviously, JP does not want you to be here. He does not want his opponent to be right next to him, right? His options are severely hampered because of how much setup and time it takes for him to actually place the traps, right? So when you're this close to him, his options are actually fewer. But if you're like all the way back here, all of his options are available, and all of your options are pretty much not available. The only option Chun-Li has at this range is this, which is not really good against JP, as we all know, right? So we want to try to close that gap as much as possible when we're fighting this character. He's going to try to prevent you from doing that by backing up or just setting traps and just making life a living hell for you, right? So this is the type of range JP wants to be at. A lot of the most annoying characters in the game, though, want to be somewhere within this range. Akuma, Ken, blah, 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 right? Now, sometimes you will go into a situation where you fight certain players who will try to do a cheesy game plan, like Ken. You'll see a lot of Ken players will do something like this. I'm not gonna space this right because I don't use Ken, so forgive me if it's not necessarily the right spacing. But they're gonna try to do something like that, right? And when you throw a fireball from further away, you get more advantage for if your opponent blocks it or gets hit. If I do a fireball right in front of Ken, let's go ahead and get the homie Ken to block all for a moment here. Okay. Please stop pressing for me. We don't need you to press anything. There we go. Okay. So pay very close attention to the fireball here. -6. How about if I throw it from here? +12. What a difference. All I did is take a few steps back, right? How about the light one? -7. Let's take one step back. +20. That's crazy, right? It's crazy how that works out, right? So, as you can see, depending on how far away you are from your opponent, it's going to be negative or positive because, simply put, because you're recovering before the fireball makes contact with them. So you have frame advantage, right? So that's what Ken players do when they do this bullcrap right here. See, if he spaces it correctly, it's very hard to do something about that. All right, I'm not doing it right because I don't play Ken. But there we go. There's a way to space that so that like you can't really interrupt him. See that? Ken players love that. You see how I'm getting counter hit, right? They love doing that. So sometimes you'll see Ken players start the round by doing this crap right here because they're trying to do that to you. That's what they want to do. Because then once they get that heavy punch off on you, then they can start doing this bull crap right here. Like I said, I'm not doing this right because I don't pick Ken. But you know the Ken tornado. Anybody that's in master rank, that's for Ken. You already know how egregiously oppressive that bull crap is. But that's why they're doing that, right? They're backing up so that they can do this bull crap right here because the fireball is still traveling when they're drive rushing. They get so much frame advantage that once you block the fireball, they get to do a punch, and you have to block that punch or get hit by it, and then they can put you in a tornado from there. That's why you'll see Ken players do that. So Ken can threaten you heavily from that range because of that drive rush bull crap, right? So Chun-Li can't do anything from here except throw an EX fireball. Now, unfortunately, unlike Ken, Chun-Li can't do that crap back, right? She doesn't travel as far as Ken, and her fireball, I think, is honestly a little bit faster too. So, but Ken travels very far. So he's gonna try to do that bullcrap. So in order to make that not an option for him, we want to be closer to him. Right? Let me go ahead and get Ken to do that sequence again. All right. See, we're closer. The fireball is hitting me before he gets to move. So if he tries to do that bullcrap, I can do almost anything and just hit him out of it, right? Versus if he's this far away and he spaces it correctly, he can do that crap and I get counter hit out of it. You see the difference? That's why the spacing is important, right? So the more you start to learn the matchups against certain characters, the more you will be aware of what they are capable of. That's why you'll see Ken players and Terry players back up like that because they want to get free frames on you for no reason. So that they can put you in a tornado and throw you all day. So if you're closer, obviously Ken can't do that. Now you don't want to be too close to where Ken can just do this bullcrap to you all day long, right? You don't want to be close enough to where he can just do this bullcrap, right? So I'm probably not sequencing that stuff right. I don't use kin, but I think you get what I'm trying to picture here. So you don't want to be too close to where he can just generate. Huh. This is probably a pretty good space. He can't do that fireball bullcrap, and he can't generate you to death either, right? And then this is of course where the movement can come in as well. That way you can move in and out of ranges and bait whiffs and try to get your opponent to whiff buttons and punish them. Now we're not going to really get into whiff punishment in this specific video, but I think you get what I'm saying. So spacing is very important. That combined with movement, right? So with Chun-Li specifically, like I stated, generally speaking, you want to be somewhere within this range. Another thing that you want to be concerned about when it comes to controlling the neutral is we've discussed it in plenty of videos, but I'm going to have to bring it up again just so that we're all clear on it. You don't want your opponent to be doing stupid stuff like that. This puts you in a sort of situation where Ken can put you in a tornado, right? Let's go ahead and set Ken to... Alright. Now, if he goes for a throw, technically you can jack her, but you have to guess. Alright. You have to guess if he's going to throw or not. If you try to grab and he decides to push a button like this, whoops. That's what's going to happen, right? This is me trying to throw. And also, if you try to push a button, you get beat, right? So you gotta guess. You don't want to be in this situation. So a part of the neutral is maintaining this space. It's eliminating our opponent's options and increasing our own options. And something that you want to make sure people don't do is, let's go ahead and set some parameters here. You already know what it is because we've done this before. Well, at this range, you probably do this. And this. You don't want your opponent to be doing all this bullcrap, right? And crouching on your space without earning it, you don't want that. So a part of, the neutral, of course, is as we discussed in another video, is we don't want to lose the neutral. So obviously, if our opponent is getting away with doing stuff like this, we are losing the neutral, right? Because each one of these situations allows them to put you in a tornado. And like we said earlier, it's all about having more options than your opponent. If your opponent has frame advantage on you, they have more options than you. And that's a simple way to put it, right? They're putting you in a situation where they got more options, you have fewer options, and you have to guess. So all three of these scenarios that we recorded here puts you in a situation where you have to guess. This is a situation where the neutral is lost. So part of playing neutral and spacing is maintaining this space and making it so that your opponent has to earn their way into your space, right? You don't want them to just be doing this stuff. So you want to check the bullcrap, right? The best way that you know how to, right? Sometimes it's tricky because sometimes you'll get hit by some of these neutral skips that people do here, right? You might be able to find a jack of all trades option. This is a little bit more risky because the recovery is 26 frames on that, so it takes some time for it to recover, so you can get whiff punished for whiffing this. But as you can see, technically speaking, this can check all of the options too. If trying to check each one individually is a little bit too hard. It's not a foolproof option, as you can see though. Ideally, you want to check each situation appropriately. Drive rush, you want to check with something like this or this. In doing Dragon Dash, you should be able to check by just doing something like this. And jumping, you want to check with 10 shows if you can, but obviously we know Chun-Li's Anti-air is a little bit lacking in the efficiency and department of ease of use, right? So, but ideally, this is how you really want to check these situations, right? You can also tensho anytime your opponent is not on the ground. You can also tensho them out of that as well. So you want to stop all this bullcrap right here, right? Hey, you're not going to be able to stop it every time. Even pro players get caught by this every once in a while. But in order to increase your chances of winning, you want to keep this stuff from happening, right? So that's a part of controlling the neutral as well. Stop it. Don't let your opponent do nonsense and shenanigans like that. Stop them the best that you can using your buttons. Low committal buttons like these. These are hard to punish. Right. Stuff like this. This is easier to punish. This is very easy to punish for somebody that's astute, right? So low committal buttons are like, your jabs, obviously this. Like something that's like 23 frames or lower, maybe 24 frames or something like that. But something that's like 26, 20 or higher usually is going to be easier to punish. See, crouching, there's a reason why you see high level players with punishing crouch medium kicks, but you don't see them with punishing this a lot, right? You definitely don't see anybody with punishing this. You just, unless you are one of the rare individuals that has a Rinnegan on every part of their body, you're not going to whiff punish that. You might wish punish it. I'll show you exactly what that is, even though we're not talking about that specifically. But let's get Ken to do a light punch. See, on reaction, I am 100% not going to punish that. Now, something that can work is something called a wish punish, which is where you're going to do the crap anyway. And to show you what I mean, we're going to have Ken do nothing as another option. See, I'm doing this no matter what. That's called a wish punish, affectionately named. It's when you're going to do the option, regardless of whether your opponent does something or not, you're always intending to do it, right? So that's the only way you're going to catch something like this. Now, sometimes, this is something that I'm working on too. Sometimes we're scared to whiff buttons like this because we don't want to get whiff punished. I have a fear of this that's still ingrained in me from my days in Street Fighter 4. I used to get my behind kicked really bad in that game because I never actually really truly knew how to play it, honestly. So 2D fighting games have given me a type of post-traumatic stress disorder type situation where not so much now, but where I would typically have been afraid to press buttons, even something like a light jab. But it's okay to do something like this. If your opponent happens to catch you like this, it's because you're being obvious mashing it. Or they just got lucky, the truth be told. Like I said, maybe there's a monk somewhere on the mountain out there that can react to a jab, but most people can't, right? Even many pro players can't react to a jab. It's too quick. 4 frames is crazy, right? So sometimes it's going to happen. Sometimes you're going to throw out a jab, and your opponent is going to do something like that. It happens. But you still want to throw out your button so that you can stop people from doing this bullcrap, right? So sometimes you're going to get hit out of stuff, but it's okay. So that's a part of the neutral game. And just your fundamentals in general. Don't let noobs do stupid stuff like this, right? To the best of your ability, stop them from just skipping neutral all day, right? So you don't want them to do that. You don't want them to just force their bogart their way into your space. I said, once you are able to keep that under control, then you can play more of a ground game, right? We're not going to get into footsies, but that also does include footsies as well. Footsies can be... There's a lot to it. That's one of the reasons why I don't really want to talk about it. To advance in master rank right now, we don't really need footsies that much. The key thing is to stop people from doing stuff like that. Right. So, but yeah, that's gonna pretty much be it for this particular video. Like I said, to summarize here, we went ahead and discussed spacing and controlling space and things of that nature, the more rudimentary methods of controlling space. We went ahead over some examples of why you want to control space and what spaces are good for certain characters, as well as checking people from trying to skip neutral all day long, right? You don't want them to just get an easy advantage. It's easier said than done, but you want to try to keep them from just getting an easy advantage over you, right? And yeah, try to maintain and guard your space the best that you can. It's going to make your games a lot better the better that you get at doing it, because your opponent is going to have a hard time really getting to you if you're able to check all this bullcrap, right? So it's easier said than done because it's a very fast-paced game, but you'll get better at it as you focus on practicing. Remember, in the master rank, I would highly encourage to not try to grind rank. Focus on improvement. Focus on practicing your defense. We don't need to worry too much about offense. Obviously, there are some things that we can work on offensively, but we don't want to worry too much about that, because that's how we got to master in the first place. We got to master rank by running set play on people all day long like this, right? That's how we got here. So now that we're here, what we want to go ahead and do to advance further is we got to practice our defense. And that includes things such as matchup knowledge, maintaining neutral, etc., etc., right? You know, there are other things as well, such as options, selecting defensive options. That's going to be for another dojo session. But thank you for joining me for this basic rundown of spacing and maintaining your space in neutral. Feel free to like the video if you like it, subscribe if you're willing, and this is going to be Sage Armageddon signing out. I hope you all have an awesome day. Take care.